I'm AJ. Welcome to English channel. Today I will be sharing a very important topic, that is novel. In this video we are going to discuss its origin, development and its major subgenres. This video is going to be in 3 parts, so let's begin the first part.
Novel is a term derived from the Italian word novella, which means a piece of news or tale. It also can be said as a long narrative prose fiction. Yes, of course, a fiction in prose of a certain extent. This is a very famous quotation said by E.M. Forster. E.M. Forster is a 20th century writer. He gave this definition of novel in his very famous book Aspects of Novel. Friends, this Aspects of Novel is very important from the viewpoint of the language of novel. This is the book which is compiled from his lectures which he gave in the Trinity College, Cambridge. In this book, he mainly talks about 7 aspects of novel, which are like story, people, plot, fantasy, prophecy, pattern and rhythm. So these are the 7 aspects of novel which he gave the significant value in his lectures. Of course, the novel is the one bright book of life. This a very famous quotation stated by D.H. Lawrence. Now, when we talk about the introduction, that what is a novel? So, a novel is simply a fictional story told in a narrative form that contains characters, incidents and a plot. So, the novel is a fictional story. Therefore, it is also called a fiction. Fiction means an imaginary work based on imaginations. Novels are the product of middle class educated society. It developed as a means of entertainment because dramas were unpopular in 18th century. So in 18th century, dramas were seen to be declined. So therefore, the novel came into existence. Novels are also called pocket theatre, as the novels were written mainly to replace drama, where sensory pleasure were more. So in drama, the sensory pleasure were more, therefore the novels also called the pocket theatre. It deals with the human character in a social situation as man as a social being or man as a social animal. Moving towards the origin and growth of novel. So in Greece, at first of all, developed the romances. Romances means a tale of adventure and love. And in Rome, Latin work in the form of romances, the first Satyricon. Satyricon is a 1st century CE, published in 1st century CE by J.S. Petronius. The next one is Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is also known as the Golden Age, also came in 1st century CE by Lysias Apuleius. There is a very famous note here. The first novel of the world is A Tale of Genji. Of course, this is the very important. We should remember it. The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu. Murasaki Shikibu is also very famous. Published The Tale of Genji in 11th century Tantan. It was written in early Middle Japanese language. Now friends, if we talk about the precursors of novel, so the precursors of novels like the Thomas Malory's prose romance Motte d'Arthur, which published posthumously 1485. We should remember the date. This work is very famous, Motte d'Arthur. The next one, Philip Sidney's pastoral romance Arcadia, which published in 1593. The Thomas Nash's picaresque narrative. The first picaresque narrative, also Jack Wilton or The Unfortunate Traveller, came in 1594. This is a very famous work by Thomas Nast, and it is also the first picaresque novel. Miguel de Cervantes, the very influential work Don Quixote, which published in two volumes, 1605 the first volume and 1615 and second volume in Spanish. Remember this date published in Spanish and in English published the first part in 1612 and the second part 1620. The translator of this work is Thomas Salton. The very famous translator Thomas Salton translated this Don Quixote into English. Many critics consider Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, which came in 1719, as the first English novel, and the next work, Moll Flanders, same category, like the Moll Flanders published in 1722. This work is also considered as the precursor, or sometimes the first novel of English literature. But some critics believe that the Pamela to be the first English novel, as it contains a well-developed plot. The Pamela, the famous work written by Samuel Richardson, which published in 1740. Now talking about the four wheels of novel, the four writers which are very famous, considered as the development, considered as the significant author to develop the novel, to develop the genre of novel. First, Samuel Richardson, of course, 1689 to 1761, Henry Fielding, Tobias Smallett, Lawrence Sterne. These four writers considered as the four wheels of novel. We should definitely remember these four writers, and their contributions in the field of English literature are also significant. Talking about the first writer, Samuel Richardson, who is also known as the father of English novel. He was a letter writer and wrote epistolary novel. Epistolary novel is a kind of form of novel which are written in the letter form. He started writing at the age of 50. So he started very late writing novels. The famous work Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded. Remember its subtitle, Virtue Rewarded. It's published in 1740. Next one is Henry Fielding. Henry Fielding is also known as the father of picaresque novel. Picaresque novel, we earlier talked about Thomas Nast, the first picaresque novel. And here the father of picaresque novel is Henry Fielding. He is the first novel critic, and he called his novels the comic epic in prose. Remember this phrase, this title, comic epic in prose. He focused on characters, and his famous works like Joseph Andrews came in 1742 and Tom Jones came in 1749. Next one is Tobias Smallett. Smallett is also known as the father of sea novel. He was a surgeon by profession, and he influenced Dickens a lot, and his famous work is The Adventure of Roderick Random, which published in 1748. The last but not the least, Lawrence Sterne. Sterne is known as the father of experimental novel. Remember, he is known as the father of experimental novel. He is the precursor of modernism in English novel. And his very famous influential work, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, the Gentleman, came in 1759. This work published totally in 9 volumes, and this is the first novel known as the famously known as the experimental novel. Now talking about the subgenres of novels, friends, here we have picked maximum the subgenres of novels. So one by one we are going to give a particular genre and its famous writers, their works. So this novel, this video is going to be in 3 parts. So stay tuned with us and enjoy the video. Now the subgenres of novels and the father and exponents, author exponents are given here, the right hand side. Picaresque novel, of course the father of Picaresque novel is Henry Fielding. Epistolary novel is a form or is a subgenre of novel. Samuel Richardson is the father of epistolary novel. Here the historical novel, it is also a subgenre of novel. Sir Walter Scott is the exponent of this form. Sentimental novel developed by Henry Mackenzie. Domestic novel, Jane Austen. Gothic novel, of course, Horace Walpole is exponent of this genre. Sci-fi or science fiction novel, H.G. Wells. Who doesn't know about that? H.G. Wells' Time Machine. Regional novel, of course, Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy is the exponent of this genre. Wessex is known for the development of the regional novel and the place Wessex. Detective novels, Edgar Allan Poe. And here Wilkie Collins is also pioneer in this form. So Edgar Allan Poe also known as the exponent author of this form. Next subgenres of novels are like social novel and proletarian novel. Proletarian novel is a kind of a working class novels which are developed by, of course, Charles Kingsley and John Clare. Psychological novel, of course, Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. The stream of consciousness novel. The stream of consciousness term coined by William James in psychology. Remember, he coined the term in psychology, but in English literature, May Sinclair was a writer who applied this concept into English first time in the works of Dorothy Richardson. Remember, May Sinclair applied this concept in English literature in the works of Dorothy Richardson, and the exponent of this genre, of course, James Joyce and Virginia Woolf. Anti-novel is developed by Jean-Paul Sartre. Jean-Paul Sartre is known for his rejection of Nobel Prize in 1964. He is the writer of existentialism. Nouveau Roman is also known as new novel. It is also a kind of anti-novel or avant-garde novel. It developed in mainly mid-20th century. This form is developed in France, and the famous writer or the exponent of this genre is Alain Robbe-Grillet. Now, of course, Bildungsroman and Kunstelroman. This two form is also known as apprenticeship novel. Friends, Bildungsroman is also known as coming of age novel, or it is a kind of novel where we see the development of the protagonist in the novel. Is known as Bildungsroman, is also called coming of age novel. Now, what is Kunstelroman? Kunstelroman is a kind of novel where we see the growth of an artist to maturity. So therefore it is also called artist novel. Kunstelroman is also called artist novel or growth of an artist. So let's begin one by one. The first genre, of course, picaresque novel. The term picaresque is originated from Spanish word picaro, which means rug or rascal. It is a low-level criminal novel. The first picaresque novel is Lazarillo de Tormes. Lazarillo de Tormes is known as the first picaresque novel which published in Spanish language, and its author is anonymous. Anonymous means unknown author. But in English, we see the first picaresque novel, Jack Wilton or The Unfortunate Traveller, written by Thomas Nash, which published in, of course, 1594. So remember, in English, the first picaresque novel is Jack Wilton or The Unfortunate Traveller, and overall in Spanish, in any language, the first picaresque novel is Lazarillo de Tormes, which published in 1554. This genre further brought the concept of anti-hero in English. Anti-hero means which has the means are wrong but the aims are right. It is known as anti-hero. It is also called the Byronic hero sometimes. So picaresque, the hero is rogue or rascal, something like. Now, what are the features of picaresque novel? Picaresque novel, here the protagonist from lower or middle class. We see the protagonist belonging from lower class or middle class. There is little or no plot here in this novel, and the novel has simple or loose episodic structure. So the structure of this novel is kind of simple or episodic, having loose episodic structure. Protagonist comes across different kinds of situation, meets a variety of characters, and has several extraordinary experiences. So we find that the protagonist, the hero of the novel, gets the different types of situation, meets a variety of characters throughout the novel. Action is given more importance. So in this type of genre or in this type of novels, the action of the hero are given more importance than any other things. The novel is narrated in a satirical or humorous manner, often in the first person mode. So see, the narrator or the novel is narrated sometimes in satirical tone, or there are some humorous elements also in this novel, or mainly written in the first person narrative. Now some list of picaresque novel. Here, of course, Don Quixote, written by Cervantes. We have talked earlier the first picaresque novel and the development of picaresque novel. The Don Quixote by Cervantes, published in 1605 or 1615. So this novel published in 2 volumes. This time period, remember, 1605 to 1615 is known as Spanish Golden Age. So this is also very famous age or famous time period. In this time, this work came into the existence. Greatest European picaresque novel, Don Quixote, a most influential work. Of course, Joseph Andrews, published in 1742 by Henry Fielding. Tom Jones, 1749, by the same writer, Henry Fielding. Gil Blas. Gil Blas is written by Alain Resnais. This is the French picaresque novel published in 1759. This is also very famous picaresque novel. Candida by Voltaire, published in 1759, also comes in this genre. Great Expectations, which published in 1861 by Charles Dickens, the very famous work by Charles Dickens, Great Expectation, and Martin Chuzzlewit, which published in 1884 by the same writer, Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens focused on characters mainly, therefore known as the exponent of the Kunstelroma genre. That Souls published in 1842 by Nikolai Gogol. Gogol is known as the father of Russian short story. Remember, he is very famous, often asked in exams. These writers we should definitely do in detail of these all works, because this work Can be asked in the exams like NET, SET, PhD. So in this series, next one, Tom Sawyer, which published in 1876, and Huckleberry Finn, published in 1884 by Mark Twain. Very influential writer also, Mark Twain. Kim, of course, 1901, Rudyard Kipling. This is also a very famous work, comes in this genre. Kim, Rudyard Kipling, is known as the first recipient of Nobel Prize in 1907 of English literature. So this is also very famous writer. We should remember him. The Adventure of Augie March, published in 1953 by Saul Bellow. Under the Net, published in 1954 by Iris Murdoch. The Ginger Man, 1955 by J.P. Dunleavy, also very famous. Lurulu, published in 2004. It is a sci-fi, a science fiction novel, but there are some picaresque element also there, by Jack Vance. So we should remember these all works which are very famous. Some beautiful statements on novel. Now finally we comes up here some quotations. The only classification of the novel that I can understand is into that which has life and that which has it not. The very famous quotation about novel by Henry James. We should remember, it can be asked in exams. Of course, life resembles a novel more than a novel resembles life. George Sand stated this statement. If you try to nail anything down in the novel, either it kills the novel or the novel gets up and walks away with the nail. So this statement is quoted by D.H. Lawrence. Novels are about other people and poems are about yourself. The very famous line told by Philip Larkin. So friends, here we comes an end of this novel of the series. The first part